connects directly with the psychological attitude that's being expressed, right? In other words, that's right. In other words, as soon as you enter a contract for employment, you are the employer's tool. If you don't like it, you can bugger off. That's the argument.
You can lose not quite.
That's the argument. That's what he said. What else? Where's the nuance? Where's the nuance? You have the right to leave.
Language to make it sound.
Language is the means by which we communicate, my friend. Right?
You're twisting what I said.
You want me to do charades for you? Okay, I'll do charades like this.
Do it by mine.
I'll do it for this. You're the employer, I'm
You're
the
going to
worker.
go like that, aren't you? Let me guess.
Contract, no piece of paper.
Oh, I'll say no thank you, I'm going to go to her.
Exactly.
Does that fit your little game?
Yes, it fits exactly. In other words, the employer has the right to select within the marketplace by using their economic power, which the worker doesn't have. My friend,
If that was the case, why would people work for charity? Why would people work for free sometimes? Why would people volunteer?
Well, that's a different relationship. It's a different relationship. The word volunteer says it all. Why would people volunteer, he says.
They're giving their time for a cause.
They're volunteering. But
They're giving their
by
time.
saying what you just said, people choose to work as volunteers, you are clearly distinguishing between a worker who's made a contract and a volunteer, right?
A volunteer can make it.
The appearance can be the same. Maybe someone goes to a charity shop and volunteers to work 5 days a week, 40 hours a week.
What point are you making?
But there is clearly in your mind, not mine, your mind, a distinction between the voluntary nature of working for a charity and the involuntary nature of being controlled by an employer in a contractual relationship. Now, we come to the question of choice. Of choice. We live in a market, the gentleman says. Now, given the fact that we live in a market, as you say, we live in a market. So that's the cage within which we live, right? You said it.
I didn't say it was a
cage.
The market lives within us.
The gender chipping it.
The market lives within us, or we live in the market.
It's not a cage, though.
In other words, is the market controlled by us, or does the market control us?
You have to speak simply.
Hang on.
It's an external
They are nothing between.
So in other,
The market is actually a relation between people.
the market is a relation between people. Now, is there such a thing as market power?
Yes.
In other words, if I've got £5 billion
I hope you don't.
and I want to turn around to this man here and say, would you mind stripping off all your clothes, jumping up and down 7 times and trying to do a wheelie on that with an erection? Right?
Yes, of course.
If I paid him £1 million, I bet you he'd do it. If he didn't do it, you'd do it. If you didn't do it, I'd do it. Right?
But he would do it voluntarily. He would do it with his own.
What do you mean? He would do it voluntarily. If I turn around to him and say, please do it now, he won't do it.
No, but it's a trade.
If I have £1 million and there it is, right, in escrow, waiting for him to get it, he will do it. Right? As would nearly every person here. Right? So, don't imagine that isn't market power. That is market power. The person who won't do it will have a strong religious conviction, or they will themselves be millionaires who don't care about it. Why should I do that? What do I need £1 million for?
Mr. Speaker.
Doesn't interest me.
Mr. Speaker.
I'm not bothered by £1 million.
Mr. Speaker.
So in other words, one sec. In other words, the economic power that is a historical creation allows someone to have power over others. Let me give you an illustration of what this means. In today's world, 85 billionaires own more wealth than half of the world's population. So they've got more economic power. Sorry?
That sounds a lot like it's untrue. Where did you get that?
Oxfam figures last month, published for the United Nations. Check on the internet. Oxfam, 85 billionaires. Type that in. Now, because 85 billionaires own more than half the world's population, it gives them power over the world's population.
Yes.
That power allows them to say, who will work for me at the market rate? And the market rate, of course, is decided by what?
Availability.
Supply and demand, right? Supply and demand. Now, supply, thank you very much. Supply and demand in the marketplace determines the price of the work. So in other words, it's not a contract made by an employer in free conditions where the worker goes and says, I want £1 million. The guy turns and says, yeah, okay, you're worth £1 million. Instead of this, he turns around and says, how much can I get someone for, like you? I can get them in the present marketplace, I can get them for £20,000. In fact, in the present market conditions, I can get them for £18,000.
What's wrong with that?
So when you say the market determines the price of labour, it's not something that is just freely negotiated. It is determined by an external condition, driving and governing human relations, which itself is governed by power connected with the amount of money you've got. So democracy at work is determined by the amount of money, power that people have. Some people have no money power. In other words, they have no savings and no income to live without working, unless they're prepared to live on £57 a week. If they don't live on £57 a week, which if you ask the members of Parliament, can you live on £57 a week, they always say no, right? In fact, they need expenses of over and above £55,000 a year.
Benefit is benefit.
The consequence of that is that the economic power relation between people compels people to work. They are compelled to work for employers. At the wage conditions, sorry?
What you described earlier.
This is the everyday life of everybody.
What you described earlier
Most
of a boss going to their employee and saying, how does it work? The operation works the same way. A worker can go to their boss. Of course it does. You say, this other person will pay me £30,000 a year. You only pay me $20,000. You can go and you can get a new job. You're free to leave.
Okay. That's not what I'm saying, though.
That's the problem with your
That's not the inversion.
Your ideology compels people to work in those environments, but you pretend that you can pay them more.
It's not the inversion of what I was saying. The inversion of what I'm saying is not, do I choose to work for this employer with money power or that employer with money power? I agree, people have got that choice if they get the job. However, they can try, in good market conditions, they can try to get a higher wage. In present market conditions, the employer can try to say, please eat your sandwich at your computer. Right? And that's more normal than people getting higher wages at the present market conditions. Proof of this, wages in Britain, Europe and America have gone down for the last 5 years.
Yes.
Right? So these simple facts, because of market conditions, determine the actual relations rather than circumstances you're talking about. Doesn't mean nobody. I've got a friend who just tried to get a wage increase. She's working 42 hours a week for a medical clinic. She's got a master's degree. And they're paying her £8 an hour, right? So that's the type of condition in Central London.
Makes me think
Rent,
about
however,
giving up
the
jobs.
rent is £160 a week for one
No,
week.
£300.
Now,
I'm updating you. £300 a week.
Oh, one second.
Still subject to those macroeconomic conditions.
Now, the macroeconomic conditions that we're talking about, this market, which actually, as I said, is external to you and controls you. It's not, well, you say it's between. But I tried to show you it's not between. Let me prove it's not between again. It is between, but it's not an equal relation between. It's an unequal relation between. One has money power, the other has no money power. There's an inequality in the relationship. The more money power you have, the more people you can employ. The more people you employ, the less power they have.
Yes.
They only have power to withdraw their labour or to leave and go somewhere else. But you were saying, as I pointed out earlier on, if you're in a contractual relationship, let's say for TfL, working on the underground, and then you turn around and say, I want the right to go on strike, and then the employers turn around and say, you shouldn't have the right to strike, then you are basically saying, not only do you have a contractual obligation within the working agreement, but you cannot break that obligation without losing your livelihood. In other words, you are dictated to. You are dictated to at work. Now, an equal relation would be where a worker could go to the employer and say, rather than turning around and saying, I will agree to your contract, they would draw up a contract for the employer. Hand the the employer to the contract and say, sign this, will you? Exactly, you think it's laughable. Exactly, you think it is laughable.
Now,
It is precisely laughable because
a llama to ride to work. Oh, sign it or I'll quit. I mean,
that's the point.
walk away.
But it's perfectly viable. You just said £1 million to get a llama to ride to work. You say?
Yes.
Yes?
Represent anything.
Sounds stupid. But yesterday I went past the zoo, and there's a children's zoo, and someone there works, he's paid a wage, probably £7 an hour, to take people around on a llama, right? So, it's not so mad as you think. The inversion of that appears mad because the present society is organised in a mad way. So that when the actual possibilities for change are presented to you, you present that as madness. Actual fact, what we live in today is madness. Don't you think it's mad when you walk down the street there and there's someone dressed as an M&M?
yes.
That size of a great big fat thing in the heat, handing out leaflets dressed as an M&M? Isn't that mad? Isn't it mad when you walk down the street and there's someone holding a placard, golf sale? Isn't that mad? A human being becomes a placard? Isn't that mad? Right?
It is mad.
So you don't think it's mad? Right, good for you.
It is madness.
A human being is a placard.
Yes.
Right? 8 hours a day, he's a placard.
And he's paid £5 an hour.
You have someone standing outside the shop there.
Why not?
Sorry?
Someone offers him money for it, why not?
That's the point.
I'm pointing out to you. I'm pointing out to you.
What's your alternative here?
I'm pointing out to you. Firstly, we were discussing about dictatorship and democracy. And I was trying to point out to you that we live in everyday life in a dictatorship.
Yes.
The surface superficiality, 20 seconds in your life so far, is democracy. Right? Now, I'm glad you have that 20 seconds. I'm glad you have that 20 seconds. And I support that 20 seconds.
He says we are living in a dictatorship.
Well, maybe you do. I
That's why
certainly
the
don't.
ruling classes have
The
engineered.
ruling
They've
Do
engineered.
you know how many people are self-employed? How many
Let me
people
say
are
something.
self-employed?
They've engineered mass unemployment.
self-employed
Okay, mass unemployment
dictator, though.
has been engineered by the ruling class.
How
That's
do you
why
think
we have
Cameron come to power?
That's
By
why-
democracy.
that's how-
ridiculous.
David
That's
Cameron.
how they drive down wages so that people can work for less and less money because all the bosses have got together.
Ridiculous
Hello,
conspiracy,
let me
though.
finish. All the bosses have got together.
All
They
the
haven't
buses,
met
of course.
the bosses.
Finish, for God's sake.
Well, I can't
The rulers,
go
the rulers, the bosses, right? The ruling class, the people who own, the
bosses of John Lewis, like the bosses of all these
all these
self-employed.
bosses, all these
Hundreds
people,
of thousands of people
conglomerates,
self-employed.
conglomerates,
The John Lewis
multinationals,
conspiracy.
all of them together.
Open your eyes.
They have